Hi, my name is Elle Billing. I am a chronically ill queer femme, and I'm tired. I'm here this episode and every episode to dig at the roots of our collective fatigue, explore ways to direct our care in compassionate and sustainable ways, and to harness creative expression to heal ourselves and to heal our world. Welcome to Hoorf, Radical Care in a Late Capitalist Hexscape. And that's how I ate a whole can of beans.
Hello, Elle.
Hi, Ricki.
How are you?
Oh, I'm holding on.
Wow, that's good.
I had like a 3.5 day migraine attack this week, and I still don't feel great. Like, I have this spot on my scalp. You know the spot. It's that one right back, kind of towards the back on the right side. That gets really tight when I've been thinking really hard or doing too much eye strain.
If you were Winky, it would be right next to the bump of knowledge.
It would be right next to the bump of knowledge. But for me, it's from overusing my right eye, I think.
I mean, people do have dominant eyes, so...
Yeah. So it's that tender bit right back there. And like touching it is like both excruciating and gratifying.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this hurts so bad, but I know that if I can just like massage this a little bit, something in my head will let go and I'll feel better. So that's where I am today.
That's the weird thing about migraine pain specifically is like, you don't want anything to touch it, but also pressure makes it feel better.
Yep. I have my ice hat that my friend Dean gave me for Christmas one year.
Mm-hmm.
And like the first 2 minutes I have it on are horrible.
Yeah.
But like that's how it works. Like that's why it's so effective, because like you can't be freezing cold and in pain at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like the first 2 minutes my body's like, yeah, like I don't like this, the pressure and the cold, and then it like short circuits my brain, and then I feel better. And plus icing my headache feels good, but like I always dread like that first like putting it on. I'm like, I know this is gonna be worth it, but I just got to get over like, yeah.
And then 3 days of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was rough. So now I'm just really worn out, but also
Mhm.
I'm kind of on a deadline for these paintings, and I think part of the migraine, in addition to we had weather,
Yeah.
is I've been pushing myself really hard, and I've been craving salt, so I think I've been dehydrated.
Oh, yeah, I
Or,
bet.
like, I'm trying to hydrate, but I haven't been having enough electrolytes and salt. Because like, I wanted to salt my pizza the other night, and, like, I
Hey,
never gross, right? I was like, "This
yikes.
pizza needs more salt," and I was like, "I think I need electrolytes." I made ramen, and I was like, "This isn't salty enough." I was like, I think I need some electrolytes." That's a clue when your miso ramen doesn't taste salty enough.
Yeah.
So I added some of my favorite watermelon flavored electrolytes to my water, and I slammed it. And you know what? I felt so much better. Like my headache didn't go away, but like my mouth wasn't dry anymore and I wasn't craving salt. And I was like, I wish I'd figured this out 2 days ago.
So I think what we're gonna do today is like Bizarro episode, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, let's do it.
we're finally gonna interview Elle. The interviewer becomes the interviewee.
I'm in the hot seat.
Yeah.
It's not super hot though. It's comfy.
Yeah. It's all right. It's fake weather. It's all right. So I guess then we start with the first question, which is, how have you received care this week?
Well, like I said, I had a migraine for 3 days, so I spent a lot of time sleeping. And as has happened before, my dad had to run errands this week because I didn't want to drive with the migraine. And so I called in my mom's prescriptions that needed to be filled. And then when they were ready, normally I go pick them up. And then if I need my supplements and stuff, I pick those up too. But I had to send my dad this week because it was this we got new fresh snow, and like snow in the sunlight is the worst.
Oh, yeah.
And I get really photophobic when I have
Yeah.
a migraine. Like my eyes hurt so bad. And I was like, "Dad, I just can't." And he's like, "That's fine." And I was like, "I need supplements." I said, "And I know that like there's like 6 options for calcium and just as many for magnesium, and those are the ones I needed." I was like, "I can send a picture or just tell you what the bottle looks like." So he sent me pictures when he was there. He's like, "Are these the ones?" I'm like, "Those are the ones." And so we got it taken care of, and it was nice to not have to go out in the bright sun when I was feeling terrible. We got it all taken care of. And then he brought brownies home too.
Oh, geez. Chocolate is always good for migraine times.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't help the migraine, but I wasn't as emotionally distraught about it
Right,
'cause I had
right,
treats. Yeah, and he
right.
brought caramel rolls too, you know. No one mowed the lawn, right? But there were caramel rolls. For those who
Yeah,
don't know, when Ricki is staying with us, every time Ricki mows the lawn, my dad brings home caramel rolls as to say thank you.
and it's much appreciated.
Yeah, on both directions. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, "Thanks for mowing the lawn, thanks for the caramel rolls." It's just how we do here.
One thing I was thinking about, like, every time there's, like, fresh snow up in that area, like, ever since I was a little kid, I thought about, like, those like, the sunshade goggles that pictures of, like, Inuit people have with, like, the horizontal slits
Yeah,
that's supposed to help take down glare. Have we ever tried that? I've never tried
I've
that.
never tried those, no.
I wonder I wonder if that would help.
I just I wear the huge dark ones that go over my glasses when I go
Yeah.
out. But if I'm really photophobic, it doesn't really matter if I mean, it matters that I wear them. It helps, but, like, even with those on, I'm miserable. You know what? Another way that I received care this week, I run Spoonie Studio, which is, like, the virtual gathering space for Spoonie artists, and we have our Friday gathering, but we also have a group text.
Oh,
Yeah.
explain spoonies,
Oh, I
because
will.
I'm not sure that everyone that listens to this knows what that is.
Yeah, a spoonie is like a shorthand term for people who have invisible disabilities or chronic illness, and it a spoon is a unit of energy. And so I'll link it in the show notes to the original piece of writing where where
Mhm,
the person introduced the concept of spoons. The idea being like people who are able-bodied and well don't have to think about budgeting their energy. They
mhm,
can just do stuff and their body works and their brain works. Where those of us with chronic illness or disability or invisible disability, we wake up and we have a limited number of energy units.
yeah,
In this case, spoons. So, like, if I wake up with 12 spoons and I have to shower, that takes 6 of my spoons. And then I only have 6 spoons to do the rest of my whole day with. And when I'm out, I'm out. Like, they don't come back.
yeah,
And if I am acutely ill, I'll wake up already low on spoons. Like I'll wake up with only 4
yeah,
and still have to like get so spoonies. If you see people on social media talking about being a spoonie, that's what they mean. So I run a program called Spoonie Studio, which is for artists who are disabled or chronically ill, people who make stuff come together and just like make stuff on our own terms without the pressures of capitalism or productivity culture.
yep,
And so we have our Friday gathering, but we also have a group chat. And I have to say, the last has it only been 3 weeks, 2 weeks since the
yeah,
inauguration?
yeah,
Um, like having a group of people who already sort of speak the same language around what's happening with our body minds. You know,
mhm,
we speak the language of disability, even though
yeah,
we all have different diagnoses, right? Like in a space where we don't have to educate other people. Like we already know that part about each other.
Yeah.
We already have that baseline and we can come together, and whether we're talking about current events or not, we know we can.
Yeah.
And like we all know that it's on our radar, and like we can support each other and encourage each other, and we can share memes for encouragement, or we can go, "You know what? I'm having a really tough time right now. This is scary." And like no one's like, "You're overreacting," because you know what? We all know it's scary. And like we can just hold that space for each other and talk about ways that things that we can do
Yeah.
in a way that honors our capacity and also isn't gaslighty or bypassing or any of those things that can happen. So having a space to do that and people to do that with, and not feeling any pressure to be any certain way in the midst of it, where we can just go, ah, and be like, I know. But at the same time, go, here's a cute puppy. Like there's space for all of it. That has been, I think, a really important form of care for me, and I hope for the other Spoonies. I hope they're getting as much out of it as I am.
How long have you been doing it?
Almost a year.
Hmm.
I think I started it last March. Yeah, almost a year.
That's a long time.
Yeah, some really good people.
It's been almost every week, hasn't it?
Yeah. The only times that it hasn't happened, I was actually traveling. I logged into Spoonie Studio from my phone and like nobody went that day. So, but like I try to show up, every Friday, and there's
Yeah.
only been a couple times where no one's come, but like I've been there. We get people there every Friday. Come hang out.
Cool.
Yeah. It's been good.
What sort of ways does Spoonie Studio like work into your practice, I guess?
Oh, that's kind of funny. So we're recording this on Friday. So I had Spoonie Studio today. When I first started it last year, our router didn't have a strong enough signal for me to do Spoonie Studio in my studio. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I had my laptop up there and was trying to run Go Brunch, which is the platform we use. It's a web conferencing platform. It didn't have enough bandwidth to run Go Brunch from my
Mm-hmm.
studio. So I would just sit in the kitchen and on our first floor, and hang out, and I wasn't doing anything studio-ish. I was I was
Yeah.
I was hosting, and I'd talk to other people about what they were making, right?
Yeah.
And, having ADHD, it was kind of okay for me to have to focus. 'Cause I can get lost in painting. It's happened. We just talked about how I get dehydrated when I paint. But then last summer, we moved the modem and the route no, we moved all of it into a more central location in the house, so now I have better Wi-Fi upstairs where my bedroom and my studio are. What I've run into is that my mom's bedroom is across the room from my studio, so she's usually sleeping when I'm doing Spoonie Studio, but I've figured out how to get some white noise going for her, and if I use my earbuds, my Bluetooth headphones, right, hooked up to my laptop, and I kinda close the door, I can actually be in the studio painting with my headphones on and have Go Brunch running on my laptop. So I
Oh
actually
yeah.
was painting today while we were in Spoonie Studio. So it's as far as, like, how it works into my practice, it's, like, the thing I look forward to at the end of the week. Like, Monday through Thursday, I have an evening job. I work a couple 2 to 3 hours a night at the sunflower processing plant doing grain inspection. During the day, I try to get into the studio for a couple hours. I'm helping my mom a lot. But I'm not really interacting with other people very much. And so for me to get to spend time with other artists on Friday and to know that I have that to look forward to is kind of a beacon at the end of the week. And like to hear about other people's art that they're doing. There's knitters and crocheters and
Mm-hmm.
painters and sculptors and writers and stuff. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think feeding ourselves with community and with other art forms, feeding ourselves that way is a really important part of the artistic life of like the art practice life.
Yeah.
And I also on that happens on Fridays, and on Sundays I send out a newsletter to the Spoonies called the Sunday Spoon, where I do a little recap of what happened on Friday. So it has the newsletter has the recap, a resource, and a respite. There's 3 parts to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it has the recap and then a resource, which is usually something like a product recommendation or another disabled creator to follow. Or one week I sent how to make a Corsi Rosenthal box because we're like, there's like 4 airborne viruses going around right now. Things that like, here's something that could make your disabled or chronically ill life a little bit easier. Or here's somebody to follow who's a public health attorney who is updating people on what's going on in the federal government right now because we can't follow everything ourselves. So follow the
Yeah.
people who are aggregating it. And then respite usually is like something cute or funny or encouraging or lighthearted to sort of start the week. One time I shared the story about the rats that learned to drive, the little carts. Do you remember I sent that to our group text
Oh, I
too?
do remember
The
that
happy little
one.
rats driving the
Yeah.
carts. Another week it was it was Weird Al doing the cover of Hot to Go. Another time it was a My Little Ponies meme. You know, it's just stuff that's like, hey, this made me smile. Maybe you'll smile too. And that's kind of part of my practice too, because a big part of my whole thing is connection and care and art as care for myself, but also for other people. And so it's just really woven into what I do.
So, one thing that we haven't talked about, like all in one go, like it's been talked about piecemeal throughout the whole podcast and everything, but like, how does your disability impact your practice? How does it influence your practice? How does it work into it?
It's a good question.
It's your question. You ask it.
Yeah, I know, because I have to answer it now. I started painting like, I took a class in high school, art class, where I painted, but I don't really I didn't consider myself a painter after that. I was completing assignments. I started painting as, like, a hobby I might pursue in about 2018. Prior to that, my artistic outlet of choice was poetry and improv. But as my migraine attacks got worse and my medication side effects were impairing me more, I was having a harder time with words,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really frustrating me. I don't want my artistic outlet to be another frustration for me. It needs to be something that feeds me, not that drains me and makes me upset. It needs to be something I can do when I'm upset to process those feelings. So I started with printmaking as a way to try and capture the experience of my migraines. Like right away, it was like my first foray into working with printmaking and acrylic paint and stamp cutting was I need a way to convey the experience of my disability. So it was like it was like disability based art. And that's why I started. So it's always been kind of the core of why I'm doing what I do. And I've done a lot of migraine inspired work. I've branched out from that, but a lot of my work is still very centered in the themes of memory and identity because of my experience with migraine and also queerness, because identity is such a huge part of that. But my disability also colors how I'm queer.
Yeah.
Like I can't perform femininity the way that even if I wanted to, I couldn't.
Yeah.
So memory and identity are themes that I cover, like that I address a lot in my artwork. And a lot of that is because of disability and illness shaping the way that I interact in the world. And having been quote unquote the smart kid, the gifted kid growing up, and then ending up with a neurological disease that impacts my ability to communicate at times. That was a real knock to my perception of self, to my identity. And so, I mean, that is one way that my disability and my illness shape my art practice, what I choose to make art about.
Yeah. One thing I notice is, and you've talked about this before, but not terribly in depth, is the way that words and linguistics figure into your art,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not always in ways that are obvious. For example, you often use pages out of the dictionary or pages of classical literature, like your Shakespeare
Mm-hmm.
ones often had actual like lines from the poems or the plays and stuff like as part of the work itself. But sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes it's very abstract and on a much lower layer that it's like not obvious that you can see it in. So I was wondering if that's like
Yes, that's a choice. That's a
yes.
decision.
Yes. But one thing I mentioned in my own newsletter was that one of the things I learned from David Lynch is that everything is intentional even if you don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my question is like obviously there's intention there, you're the artist, you did it, but do you necessarily know when you're making something more or less obvious or concrete in a piece that you're working on?
Yes, and so I have some pieces where I mean it's a mix. I'm actually teaching workshops this year about my art process. My art process is very much about embracing duality.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a very much a mix of intention and intuition
Yeah.
and structure and serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like there will be times where I tear out specific pages of Shakespeare and save them for a specific layer. I did a piece in my Ophelia collection called I Am No Brother. No, I am no brother. I am no mother. I am no bride. I combined those into one word. I am no brother. I did it again. I am no mother. I am no. I need a nap really bad. This is what happens. See, this is what happens when I've had a migraine. All my words
Mm-hmm.
just go.
Yeah.
I am no mother. I am no bride. You wear yours with a difference. And I specifically used one monologue from Ophelia and photocopied it 4 times and made 4 flower petals with that excerpt. And that was on
Mm-hmm.
the top layer. That was an intentional choice
Yeah.
because there was a line in that speech that mentions the flower rue, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
was the flower that I made out of those petals. That was a very intentional choice because it was the whole meaning of the painting was
Yeah.
centered on
Yeah.
that flower. But like underneath, there were other pages from the book from Hamlet that were just pages I tore out and used as collage layers. When I did my Berenstein Bears collection, the illustrations that I layered under the paint were all intentionally chosen for each painting. When I did the buffalo paintings from our trip across Wyoming,
I don't know that I recall those ones.
we never saw a single bison.
Oh, yep.
That
Mm-hmm.
one, I used pages from a children's encyclopedia about the Wild West. I painted over it with some acrylic paint and then scratched back with the end of my
Mm-hmm.
paint with the butt end of my paintbrush one line about the like I paid attention to where I was painting and what the text was, and I
Mm-hmm.
scraped back just over one line of text about the disappearance of the bison.
Mm.
So sometimes it's very intentional. Like,
Yeah.
I want you to see this line.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like the stuff I'm working on now for the failure experiment. It's just a lot of random, weird, old text about how the internet works. And so I have like glaze over it. Like I've glazed over it with a bunch of different layers. And so like you can read it if you want to, but you don't have to. But if
Yeah.
you did, it would be like, oh, that's interesting. It adds to the meaning, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So it's a mix.
Oh.
Because sometimes happy accidents happen and you end up with a word you don't expect. Like you
Yeah.
use dictionary pages and the word etiquette shows up a piece where you also used a page from Emily Post's etiquette. Like, oh, happy accidents. I leave space for that too. And sometimes I buy specific like I get all my books at the thrift store or from like library discard piles. And like I will find a book and be like, oh, I'm buying this and I'm gonna wait for I have an abnormal psychology book from the 60s. I've used a couple pages out of it. A couple of pages on addiction.
Yeah.
But like at some point there's gonna be a reason I need that book.
Yeah.
Right? Like I look for really interesting books. I don't just buy anything. Except dictionaries I'll always buy. But like the book has to like call to me. It has to be something like I have like a 1937 Etiquette by Emily Post. I
Hmm.
have On Becoming a Woman from 1954.
Oh, geez.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah, I bet.
My favorite chapter is the the chapter called Danger, and it's about lesbians. Those wily lesbians.
Witchcraft and communism.
Yep. So, like, the book has to call to me and then something will find its way
Yeah.
into my work.
I was looking for a way to get this question in a nice like segue, but I think that
Lesbians?
moment no,
Oh,
I think that moment has the moment for segue has passed. So I'm just gonna like, so what does a normal, quote unquote, normal day for you look like
oh,
from a care standpoint and or from an artistic standpoint?
okay. Weekday or weekend?
Well, there's more weekdays, so probably that.
So, my dog will get me up around 7 to feed her, and my dad's usually still home at 7 doing breakfast or whatever, or taking his his post-breakfast nap before he leaves for the
Mm-hmm.
farming stuff. So, I'll feed the dog, say hi to dad, I'll go back to bed. And then Winky will wake me up again to go potty because, of course, she can't.
Can't combine those two
No,
skills.
gosh, no. Gonna make me go up the stairs more times.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we do the food and go into the bathroom, and then she lets me sleep in usually till about 9:30, and then I get up twice a week. I shower, which that's a whole thing because it just I have to take seated showers. That's
Yeah.
why I only do it twice a week. Takes a lot of energy. I take my meds, I brush my teeth, I do all that. I get my mom's meds out and ready so that whenever she wakes up, which is anytime between 11 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
they're out and ready, and I don't have to, like, remember later to get them. I just get them out and ready for her. I eat breakfast and have my coffee. Depending on how I'm feeling, I might start painting or reading or working on something on my computer right away, or I might kill time on my phone trying to fire my brain up until dad gets home. At noon, I usually sit and have lunch with him, do the crossword maybe, or just talk to him about what's going on that day or during the week. When he goes for his nap, I either also nap or paint or work on my computer some more. When I'm on the computer, it's doing like other businessy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
emails, podcast stuff, working on my website, making things for my spoonies or for my art class, whatever. At some point, I do take a 2-hour nap. At some point, my mom does wake up. I make sure she eats something and gets enough water. At 5, I feed the dog again. And then at 7:30, I have to go to work. So sometime between 5 and 7:30, I also eat supper. And then at 7:30, I go to work. I come home at 10:30, and then I get ready for bed. So it's just a lot of like balancing my energy between checking on my mom, keeping an eye on my dog, and like doing studio and computer activities
Mm-hmm.
and napping. And it's like it doesn't sound like I do very much. Why would I need a 2-hour nap? I just can't do much. Like 2 hours on the computer and my brain is toast.
Yeah. Actually, I was gonna ask you how. Actually, I'm gonna back up and preface this a little bit. Like, one of the things that artists in general don't like talking about is like the business part
Mhm.
of being an artist, especially an independent artist. And so, how does your disability affect the admin and business and computery related part of doing your art?
Yeah, I have such limited energy. Like right now, I am in creation mode. That's all I want to be doing. I don't want to be on the computer because switching tasks takes as much energy as doing a task, like switching brain modes. But I'm also like, I need to do other things. So I try to pick like 1 or 2 days just to do admin, and then the rest of the time I ignore my computer and just paint. Or I'll do admin during my break at work at night. I'll, like, catch up on emails while I'm waiting
Mhm.
for cans to cool. It's hard. It's, um, for the normies, right, the ableds,
Mhm.
running a small business is more than a full-time job.
Yeah.
I can't even work a part-time job. So, like, I have good support. I have people who I can ask for help. I have people who can do things for me if I ask them, who can help me get things done. But I still can't put, like, even with help, there's no way to put in 40 hours a week doing all the things that need to be done, which is why my business is not as far as I want it to be.
Mhm.
But I also have to redefine success for myself because of what I'm doing and what I can do. So, like, I'm happy with how far my art practice is. Like, I'm really happy with the paintings I'm making right now. I'm really happy with the work you and I are doing together collaboratively. Spoonie Studio is something I'm really proud of. The workshops that I'm teaching, this is the founder's year of my art workshops where, like, I have the bones of the program, and, like, this first group of people that's gonna go through the workshops with me are kind of helping me put the meat on the bones.
Mhm.
And, like, I went back and like, I had to do the transcript for the first workshop, and I was doing it at the table, and mom was eating something, and I lifted up my headphone and I was like, "Hey, mom, did you know that I'm smart?" Like, I was listening back to, like, what I had said during the workshop, and I was like, "Huh, that that was really good." 'Cause, like, sometimes I think, I don't know, what am I even doing, right? Like, 4 years ago, I blew up my life, or my life blew up, and I got the hell out of there, and I still have moments like, "What am I doing?
Yeah.
Eh, have I been painting long enough to be teaching other people about it?" Well, I'm not teaching them painting lessons. This is, like, process, how to find the why of your art, how to create more meaning, how to make art that matters in a time when we need that. I know about that. That's the type of art I've always made. I When I did theater, I was all about theater for social change. When I was writing poetry, it was poetry with some guts. It was,
Yeah.
now I'm just doing it with visual art. I know what I'm talking about. Listening back, I was like, "Oh, I do know what I'm talking about. This is okay. I'm doing okay. I'm just doing it slower, and that's okay." I don't know if that answered your question.
Um, I think so.
I guess my disability makes the business side of my art slow.
Slow, yeah.
Yeah, it makes it much slower.
Well, that I think moves us into our last question because getting close to out of time here. So, what is one true thing that you have learned from your art practice?
Mm. That there is It doesn't matter if it seems that someone has already done something, because, like, no one has done it exactly the way that I'm gonna do it with with my experiences and my perspectives. There was at one point a couple years ago when I was still putting together, like, what is it that I do? And I was like, well, it's sort of like cubism, except queer, and it adds the fourth dimension of time.
Mhm.
Okay, because cubism, it was like all three dimensions, right? Represented in the two-dimensional plane, all perspectives at once, blah, blah, blah. Well, I have issues with Picasso. He was a dick.
Documented. That's fact. He was a terrible person.
He From his own mouth.
Yeah.
Plus I just read, Hannah Gadsby's memoir, and she gets into that again too, where she's like, "Picasso was a dick." Um, so it's on the front of my brain again. And I'm like,
Mhm.
but this my style isn't cubism. You wouldn't look at it and go, "Oh, it's a piece of cubist art." But, like,
Yeah.
philosophically, that's what I'm doing with the timeline, right? And
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
like, but I don't wanna call it that, or even say it's like cubism, but because that's already been done. And I was like, "But no one's done it the way I've done it." And on the one hand, I don't have to do something completely original that nobody's ever done before.
Yeah.
Like, right now, I'm working on a painting of Saint Agnes, right? Saint Agatha, sorry. Saint Agatha of Sicily, and a lot of people have painted her.
Many people.
Many
Yeah.
people. No one has painted her the way I've painted her. It's okay if I'm doing Saint Agatha, because the way I'm doing her is different, and the reason I'm doing her might not be the same reason someone else is doing her. It's okay if there's one more Saint Agatha painting. And it's okay if it's hot pink.
Better, in my opinion, but
We'll see. We'll see how this turns out. We're kind of at the awkward stage right now. But like, so I guess the one true thing is like, no one's going to do it the same way that I'm doing it or the same way anyone else is doing it. What's the more important is that it's true. Like, I think I would rather create something that's derivative and true than something that's completely original and like doesn't mean anything. And I think that's where I fall on Gen AI too. I mean, there's lots of ways to tackle that too, but like from an artistic standpoint, it's not true. Like there's no truth. And that's why it just can't agree.
No, it's not that I don't agree. It's that I totally agree completely, but I want to make sure this is going to add several minutes to our runtime, I'm sure. But like, I want to make sure that we have a definition of truth.
Oh, right.
Because I mean, obviously, we're not going to define an abstract concept like that. But like, what does truth, I guess, mean to you?
Okay, in truth, in the same way that I ask people, what is one true thing you've learned from your art practice? I took a workshop on painting cloudscapes. They were beachy cloudscapes. It meant nothing to me. Like tropical escapes, to me, I'm like, why would I paint a beachscape? It doesn't mean anything to me. If I change it to a desert landscape, that's true for me. I lived in Idaho. I've been there. I have a connection to that landscape. If I add some windmills, some cows, that, or sagebrush, that to me, lots of people paint landscapes. I kind of like painting landscapes sometimes, not all the time. There has to be something true about it for me to want to do it. I didn't want to paint flowers until after my grandma died. There was no motivating factor for me to paint florals. My grandma died, then there was some truth to them. That's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in the one true thing question this season, is because one true thing is a huge piece of my art practice. Like, I have to have something true in each of my paintings.
Is that truth factual or emotional to you in that sense?
That's a really good question, and I don't know.
It sort of reminds me of that very old writer's advice, write what you know.
Right, which is what I used to teach my students too, write what you know. Yeah.
At the same time, like if you only stick to what you know, then you're possibly going to get stagnant. And so like the idea, I think I like the idea of just including one true thing rather than making that like the whole of the subject.
You said write what you know, right? Well, I didn't know cyberpunk, but each of the paintings in this series has one true thing in it. Like I'm doing a cyberpunk Saint Agatha. She's the patron saint of breast cancer survivors and breast cancer patients. That's the one true thing, is my family history of breast cancer and the fact that I have to go in every 6 months for imaging. Like write what I know, paint what I know. I don't know cyberpunk. This is intellectually difficult for me. I'm stretching myself, but there's still something true in each of the paintings.
So I guess your one true thing is
one true thing.
True things, yeah. That's interesting. Wow. Now that we've sufficiently run over time,
woohoo!
I think I can say thank you for being on your podcast.
Thank you for having me on my podcast. This was fun.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hoorf. To get the complete show notes and all the links mentioned on today's episode, or to get a full transcript of the episode, visit hoorfpodcast.com. Join the blessed herd of St. Winkus. By signing up for our newsletter, you can get Hoorf episodes delivered directly to your inbox. What's more, you get invitations to our monthly Coffee and Biscuits Chat, where you get to hang out with Ricki and Elle, talk about the show, and connect on the topics that mean the most to you. You can sign up for that at hoorfpodcast.com. If you become a patron for only $3 a month, you can support the creation of this podcast help pay my editor, and join a community of caregivers out here just doing our best. Thank you again for joining me, Elle Billing, the chronically ill queer femme who is very tired, on this episode of Hoorf. Until next time, be excellent to each other. Hoorf is hosted by Elle Billing at Elle and Wink. Audio editing by Ricki Cummings at Ricki Poo. Music composed by Ricki Cummings. Hoorf is a production of Elle and Wink Art Studio LLC, all rights reserved. Hoorf can be found on all social media platforms at Hoorf Podcast, at HOORF Podcast. I did it again!